I don't know if you saw on Saturday, Mitch McConnell's little tantrum against the orange bastard after the votes had been counted, after McConnell voted to acquit him, along with 42 other cowardly pieces of human waste of the Christian Fascist Party. But if you saw that, if you saw or since have heard all or part of what that ugly son of a bitch McConnell said, then what you saw and heard was a confession of hypocrisy and deceit that was historic. There's never been anything like that. When McConnell went to the floor of the Senate, after voting to acquit the filthy bastard, and then gave his little speech, McConnell said, quote, "Former President Trump's actions that preceded the riot were a disgraceful dereliction of duty. Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day." Well, you slimy son of a bitch. This was, in my opinion, this was McConnell's way to make sure that the spigot of cash from the corporate assholes who support the Christian Fascist Party would not be shut off completely as long as McConnell went on the record. And I'm sure that Trump listened to McConnell saying that and just kind of giggled as if to say, "No, I understand why you're saying that, Mitch. Go ahead, it's okay." But the fucking McConnell said he couldn't vote to convict, if you remember, because the trial had come too late. Trump was out of office. But it was McConnell who had kept the Senate out for the remainder of Trump's term so that the trial could not even commence. And then he says, well, the reason I had to vote to acquit was because, he was no longer. I mean, this is the slime filth of Mitch McConnell. McConnell has a PhD in filthy slime where it concerns political actions. But Jennifer writes, McConnell suggested that a criminal prosecution of Trump could be in the cards now. A stunning confession of how he regards the seriousness of the allegations and the extent of the evidence. And the only saving grace is that this McConnell son of a bitch will be forever remembered as the one who intentionally let someone worthy of criminal investigation get away. Senator Richard Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, said, quote, "It is the height of hypocrisy. McConnell, in effect, called time, and he's the one who ran out the clock." End quote. Yeah. Now, according to Jennifer Rubin at the Post, Pelosi was very pissed during the post-verdict news conference. And she said, this is quoting Nancy Pelosi, "It is so pathetic that Senator McConnell kept the Senate, let me start over, quote, "It is so pathetic that Senator McConnell kept the Senate shut down so that the Senate could not receive the article of impeachment and now has used that as his excuse for not voting to convict Donald Trump," end quote. Now, to their everlasting credit, the media, in all its various forms, figured out what was going on. and called him out in fairly blunt terms, especially in media that is so focused on whataboutism bullshit. Mediaite recounted the exchange on CNN between Dana Bash and Abby Phillip. This is how Mediaite reported it. Anchor Dana Bash began the segment talking about Speaker Pelosi's infuriated tone at a press conference early Saturday, reacting to McConnell's actions. Bash said, quote, Pelosi was so incensed, so angry, understandably so, given the fact that she really would have given the impeachment article to the Senate had she not heard pretty clearly, like we all heard, from Mitch McConnell when he was still in charge of the schedule of the Senate, that he wasn't going to bring them back from recess. End quote. And Abby Phillip added, quote, but he did it because he wanted to be able to do both things. He wanted to be able to say, I don't think we should, vote to commit Trump, but also condemn it. And then the unquote, and then the obvious conclusion, you can't have it both ways on this issue, no matter how much of a verbal gymnast you are, no matter how slimy and greasy, like Mitch McConnell, you happen to be. But he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't care how history is going to judge him. He'll be dead and rotting in a box underground somewhere. He doesn't give a shit. NBC News' Benji Sarlin said this, quote, by McConnell's own account of Trump's conduct, he decided to let the Senate adjourn rather than agree to consider removing a president who was at that very moment violently threatening the core function of government, end quote. New York Times underscored how McConnell set up the trial on terms that would allow him to then vote to acquit. The Times said, quote, Democrats were furious, pointing out that their vote to impeach came while Trump remained in office and that it was McConnell who refused to call the Senate back into session to start the trial before he left office, end quote. This is how it works. This is what happens when you have Christian fascists like Mitch McConnell who are determined to move the country into flat-out political fascism, no matter the cost, no matter how many people die, no matter the assault on the Constitution. Well, it is an assault on the Constitution. The Constitution will be destroyed as a functioning document when the Christian fascists finally take over. Oh, it will be enshrined someplace, but it will be, using newspeak or doublethink, reinterpreted. Well, this is what they really meant. Well, this is really what they didn't mean. And as Jennifer goes on to point out, McConnell cannot, one would think, cannot object if the new administration's Justice Department prosecutes the former president. McConnell, no doubt, resents Trump for costing him the Senate majority. He likely would be pleased if some prosecutor would do the job for him. Yeah, for costing him the Senate majority, not for attacking full on the Constitution of the United States and the tired, flagging efforts of the people of this country to even come close to what the documents promised in the Constitution. McConnell doesn't give a shit about any of that. Are you kidding me? Power. Trump cost him his job as leader of the Senate. Therefore, Trump is a rotten son of a bitch. Jennifer writes, the next time someone criticizes the Biden administration for a lack of bipartisanship, remember this episode of McConnell's monstrous hyperpartisanship. But as I'm sure Jennifer Rubin knows, journalists and journalism in all its varying forms has institutional memory. Institutional memory that can be recalled at a moment's notice with a few strokes on a keyboard or on a video screen. Boom, there it is. Politics sets out to destroy institutional memory. It's what Orwell wrote about as being the only function of the ministry of truth, to completely annihilate memory if it served Big Brother, if it served the fascist leadership of Oceania. Jennifer Rubin knows, I know, you know, or should know, the distinction between institutional memory in journalism and the furious attempt to destroy institutional memory where it concerns governance. Because without that attempt to destroy collective memory, the words and actions of these son of a bitches would arise to haunt them every fucking time they opened their mouths, these white male Christian monsters. So, as Rubin points out, Biden now will be dealing with a minority leader and a party, the Christian fascists, so lacking in honor and so willing to disregard the country's interests that no reasonable person could expect genuine cooperation or compromise from them. McConnell has shown his true colors. Well, I would add to that, Jennifer, that Mitch McConnell has been showing his true colors for an awfully long time. I'm sure she knows that. I'm not here to correct Jennifer Rubin. Now, there's another way to test McConnell. Rubin writes, Democrats could bring a bill or a resolution to affirm, according to the 14th Amendment, Section 3, that the former president, the orange bastard, is ineligible to hold office because he engaged in insurrection or had given aid or comfort to those who did. Now, that's a Civil War, post-Civil War provision that prohibited Confederate officials and military officers that served in that treasonous, deadly attack against U.S. Constitution from serving in the Union unless they got a reprieve by a 2/3 vote of both the House and the Senate. Do you think these cowardly, filthy Christian fucks in the United States Senate would vote by a 2/3 majority to prevent the orange bastard from seeking office again? Do you think that? Jennifer writes that Congress could enact legislation establishing procedures to enforce Section 3 with respect to Trump. And alternatively, congressional action could take the form of a concurrent resolution. And that wouldn't have the force of law, but it would cast serious doubt on the orange bastard's ability to hold office in the future. And it could be used as a basis for challenging his candidacy if he seeks office. Okay, that's all well and good, Jennifer Rubin and the members of the Democratic Party or the progressive branch of the Democratic Party. That's all well and good to banish this filthy son of a bitch, Donald Trump, from ever trying to get office. But it's not going to happen for a very simple reason. 73 million dumb fucks voted for more of Trump in the 2020 election. More death, more sickness, more plague, more economic chaos, more lies, more deceit, more destruction of everything in this country that might have led us to a truly just society. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.